Hey there, it's Mike. Thanks for coming back to my channel and checking out another video. And today we have a piece of gear review that I'm excited to talk about. It is Canon's RF 15 to 30 f3.5 to 6.3. And I was excited about this lens for a couple reasons. There's some good things about this lens, some not so good things about this lens. I'm going to tell you what my perspectives were on this as a real estate photographer primarily. The first thing that I was excited about and then not so excited about was, well, the excited part was that this is definitely lighter, more compact than what I am currently using. And as a real estate photographer, I'm using a Canon EOS R, so it's an RF mount, and I am using Canon's EF 16 to 35 f4 with their RF adapter. So I put these two together like this, and I've got a pretty decent, lens kind of length and weight combination here. So the idea of getting something like this was exciting, because you can see it's definitely smaller and it's definitely lighter. So as a real estate shooter, it's nice to have something like that, because I'm on a tripod. I'm picking that things up dozens and dozens and dozens of times a day, going up and down stairs, multiple homes. So to have something lighter was a nice idea. Now, by lighter, how much lighter? This guy, I think, is not exact, but just under a pound. And the 16 to 35 f4 with the adapter was just over a pound and a half. So it's not quite a pound of difference, but that has an impact. Again, dozens and dozens and dozens of times a day I have to pick up that tripod, and to have something almost a pound lighter is nice. So that was what I was excited about. Originally, made me want to get this, and the price. But the thing that made me hesitate about this was the fact that it's variable aperture. It's f3.5 to 6.3. Now, it's one thing to be variable aperture, like with one of my Fuji lenses I used to own, f2.8 to f4. Okay, that's a small step. That's a stop. 3.5 to 6.3, that's a couple stops probably, at least. And with a zoom range of only 15 to 30, that really made me question, how's the image quality going to be like this? You have a variable aperture in a small zoom range like that, a big f-stop, variable aperture. What are we going to get? And then with the price being under $600, I'm like, this probably isn't going to be that good. But I wanted to try it. I just want to give it a try. You never want to give up on anything. They make advancements in technology and in lenses and in cameras every year, every couple years. So I'm definitely wanted to try that out. So here were some good things, some positives, as I use this on a real estate shoot. And normally I just, when I do these videos, I just say whatever, and I don't rehearse anything or write anything down. But today I actually wrote some things down here, because there's a lot to consider. So besides being light, it is native RF glass, which I like. There's nothing wrong with this adapter. This Canon adapter, EF to RF or RF to EF, however you want to go, is the best adapter I've ever had. It makes EF glass like native glass on an RF mount, so no complaints there. But if you can get native glass, you save the money on the adapter, you save the weight, you save the length, all that stuff. So exciting that this was RF. So I liked it for that. The price point is fantastic. I mean, I think I paid with tax $580. I mean, if you wait a few months and the used copies, they're going to be floating around with this. I mean, you can't beat the price if you're starting out to get that wide, to get to a 15 to 30. So that was a pro too. Let's talk about a couple of things that weren't so good, and then we'll take a look at some images that I shot. The thing that worried me, besides the variable aperture, when I first got this and I was starting to mess around with this, I realized that there is not a manual focus, autofocus switch directly on the lens. If you want to switch from autofocus to manual focus, you have to go in the Canon menu, go to focus mode, and then change it within the menu system, not on the lens. That's a big deal for me, at least the way I was shooting, because I go in and I shoot brackets on a tripod. Normally what I do is I would, pick the point with my finger on the back of or on the screen on the back of the camera. I would let it autofocus, and then I would just use the switch on the lens to manual focus. I'd shoot my 3 or 4 brackets, be done, go on to the next photograph. And it was just kind of a habit I had, and I never started out manual focusing the shot. And so I can't go into the menu system for every single shot and change it. It's just not efficient. And so I have to adjust. That was a big deal. Like, is that a make or break thing here? And I won't, I told myself I won't give up on the lens. I won't know until I actually try it on a couple shoots. So, but it was kind of a big disappointment. Instead of having that switch, they have something called a focus control switch. You either switch it to focus or control. If you switch it to focus, the narrow ring at the top, assuming the menu system in the camera is set to manual focus, that will manual focus the image then. Okay, if you have the focus control switch to control, that ring now that used to manually focus the image now controls ISO, or at least that's the default. I haven't looked into it. I know sometimes you can change what that controls, but the default is ISO. I have no need for that. And focusing is way more important than the control. So they had that switch instead, which I suppose if you're a landscape shooter or you're whatever, and you're just doing single exposures, that's probably very useful. But for me, that's a nightmare. At least I thought in the beginning, not having manual focus, autofocus switch on there. So that was not good. It does not come with a lens hood. Not a big deal, but I kind of want to have one, not just for protection, but I use it outside as well. There might be window glare coming in, things like that. I definitely want to have a lens hood. I'll leave a link below. You get a generic one. Don't buy Canon's like $40 lens hood. I'll have a link for Amazon below, or the one that I ordered. It's going to do just as good a job. It'll be here in like 2 or 3 weeks. So there's no lens hood. So those were kind of the negatives. And so I was very curious when I was going to go to a couple shoots, how is this guy going to perform image quality wise? Now, I will say this before we get to the images. I'm using this as a real estate photographer. I'm, going into homes day in and day out. They need to be good. They need to be good or very good. They don't need to be great. I don't need image quality or sharpness, like something out of my 17mm tilt shift lens. These are going to be viewed on people's phones. This is going to be viewed on people's computers. This is just for internet usage, MLS. These images are not going to be printed. I don't need corner-to-corner sharpness or anything like that. If I have something for like a commercial client or a home builder, I'll get the tilt shift lens out, okay? But I do not need amazing, immaculate National Geographic images out of this, okay? But I was curious, what are these going to look like compared to the 16 to 34? What's the image quality going to be from this, variable aperture lens, especially when the gap is that big in the different apertures? So let's take a look at some images here, and I'll show you what I came up with and my thoughts. So here we are in Lightroom, and I like looking at kitchen shots because it's easier to sort of break things down here. But this is, if we go to develop module, I can show you crop-wise, very little crop happening here. This is pretty much the sensor. And if we go in and let it load, go into the corners here a little bit, it's actually pretty darn good. Now this is ISO 320. You go to the middle of the image, that's pretty darn sharp. I'm okay with that. Again, I can live with these being on the internet, on MLS, things like that. If we go to an outside shot, maybe part of the duplex here, this is looking pretty good. Let's let it load here. Again, the middle looks fantastic. This up here, it could be the wind blowing these leaves a little bit. It looks a touch soft. We get down here in the corner. That's actually pretty good. Like I was impressed. Okay, if I go to the actual images after they were exported, let's say, and this is 120 DPI, that's what I deliver to my clients, and I go to, this is 100% right here, that looks good. That looks just as good as my 16 to 35 f4. You start really, I am not a pixel peeper by any means, but if we go in here, this is 214%, 120 DPI. Yeah, it's starting to break apart a little bit, but it's fine. For phone, for desktop, things like that, that looks fine. Again, if we go to the outside shot here, 88%, that's 100%. This is 214%. It's starting to break apart a little bit, but if you actually go to 300 DPI, if we really wanted to see, how is it going to hold up, get to 100% here, that looks very good to me. That 300 DPI, I mean, I could definitely print that if I really wanted to. Okay, if we really went in 214%, okay, yeah, it's starting to break a little bit, but I'm actually impressed by the variable aperture quality of that lens. And I think, for me as a real estate shooter, I'm always at f8 or f9. So, and the general rule is that, the sweet spot for any lens as far as sharpness and quality is probably a 2 to 3 stop closure from the maximum aperture. So if I'm at 20 millimeters, I'm at, let's say, f4, f4.5. f8 is a couple stops closed down. That's probably a pretty good sweet spot for that lens. So this little guy is actually, quite impressive. I mean, the only thing I have to get over is not having that autofocus, manual focus switch on the side. And so I'm definitely going to, use it next week, use it on some real estate gigs, where I'm just manual focus. That's it. It wasn't an issue. The 2 shoots that I did, I don't think it'll be an issue, but I'm definitely going to test this guy out. I want him to work. It's one of those things like, if you get excited about a piece of gear or equipment, you're like, I want this to work. I want this to work. And so I want it to work, and I think it will. The upside is with the price, I can sell my 16 to 35 f4 and even make a few bucks on it. So, I have some links below. Definitely check out this lens. If you're starting out as a real estate shooter, a landscape shooter, and you have, an RF mount from the Canon, I would recommend this lens, absolutely. There's more upside than downside, and I think variable aperture lenses have come a long way. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I would have never picked up this lens. I would have looked at that focal, that variable aperture range, and I would have said, forget that. They've come a long way. I have one Fuji lens that's variable aperture that has a very wide focal length range, so equivalent to 82 to 300. That's a variable aperture, and it's pretty sharp. And their kit lens, their 16 to 50 was best kit lens I ever had, and that was variable aperture. But this was my first RF variable aperture lens. But Canon did a great job, and I honestly think they could probably even charge a little bit more for this. Don't tell them that, but this is a great price. So if you're starting out, I definitely recommend it. Check out my affiliate links below. I'll have Amazon there for sure. You can read reviews, check out other things about it, what other people have questions about. I might have my Adorama link down there as well if you're not an Amazon person. And I'll have the link for the lens hood as well. So let me know if you have any questions or concerns or things like that before you maybe end up purchasing, but I would give it a thumbs up. Great job by Canon. Until I talk to you with another video, keep making and taking great photos. Bye-bye.